All right, everybody, welcome to a special edition of Inside the Birds TV. You know me, Geoff Mosher. The other guy in that box is Adam Caplan. And the one that you don't know that you're going to know a lot about by the end of this is Jaylon Johnson, the former cornerback from Utah and a possible first, maybe second round pick. We're going to talk to him about it. First, we want to thank you, Jaylon, for joining us on Inside the Birds TV. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that Inside the Birds TV, of course, is presented by DraftKings. They're the leader in daily fantasy sports, and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. There's a free-to-enter draft pool for up to $15,000 where you can win. So let's get started, Jaylon. Obviously, we're recording this on Monday, a couple of days before the first round, Thursday, first round of the NFL draft. How are you feeling right now? Is there a lot of excitement? What kind of what are you doing to keep yourself busy while these days go by here before the draft?
Honestly, it's starting to heat up now. I mean, it's starting to get a lot of phone calls, just checking in, just trying to confirm where I'm going to do it at, how I'm going to do it, the phone call to call. So, I mean, just little stuff like that. And then just staying busy with my rehab and my therapy on my shoulder as well. But honestly, just tidying up everything before the big day on Thursday.
So, Jaylon, let's talk about that labrum surgery. When did you have it? And then the other thing, which is amazing to me, is that you went through the entire combine workout. And you also lifted, which is interesting. What was the thought process of going through the entire workout, knowing about your shoulder?
No, well, I go back. I had it in March 4th, like 3 days after the combine, that next Wednesday. But honestly, I just wanted to grind it out how I did the whole entire season. And honestly, it was uncomfortable. Of course, I know I can do more on the bench press, but I didn't want to push myself or push my shoulder past any limits. But I mean, I was satisfied with the 15 numbers I got doing the bench press. But honestly, it was just doing what needed to be done. And I felt like now looking back at it, was a great decision, knowing that I didn't have pro day or anything like that, but just being able to showcase what I can do despite any injuries that I may have.
Yeah, I mean, we see guys, Jaylon, who, they sometimes don't do certain workouts because they don't want to get injured. You were nursing an injury and were still able to get through it. Did you get a lot of feedback from, NFL people or anybody saying that they were really happy, and that shows a lot about, what kind of work ethic and desire you have as an athlete?
Right. That was the majority of the feedback that I had. There was probably one or two maybe that thought I should have got it right after season and just skip the pro days and skip the combine testing and stuff like that. But I mean, for me, it was just keep trying to check off boxes. And I had no doubt in my mind that I'll be ready for training camp and I'll be ready for season. So, I mean, I'm not concerned about that aspect, but just being able to show people what I can do physically. And then I feel like for me, the mental part was the easiest part, but just trying to keep going through and push through and just kind of shine physically and show them what I can do.
Jaylon, looking at your career, were there any other injuries other than this one shoulder injury going back to high school?
Yes and no. I've always had I had 2 shoulder surgeries on my left shoulder, but this is the first one on my right shoulder. I had one in high school and then one in 2017, and then I hurt my right shoulder trying to compensate for my left shoulder in 2018, and then I ended up getting it fixed.
How comfortable are you, and as knowing that you just recently had this surgery about a month ago, how much do you think it's going to influence or impact your draft stock, if at all? I mean, what kind of feedback are you getting from NFL teams? And I guess what I was going to ask was, how comfortable are you that the NFL teams have the most updated, accurate information on your medicals as we get very close to the first round?
Honestly, I'm confident in it. And my team just put out an article as well, giving them an update on my shoulder from my surgeon and from some PTs. So, I mean, I know my shoulder is ahead of schedule. They said it's ahead of schedule for where I'm at, being 6 weeks going on to 7 weeks. That I'm ahead of schedule in terms of my range of motion and my strength and just how I can operate with my shoulder, considering where I'm at. So, I mean, I feel like with my progress that I have, I'm not concerned. And I feel like some teams may be concerned to have that as a question mark, but I feel like there are teams as well that know who I am and know that I'll be ready. And despite everything that all the pain that I played through, now that I'll be able to be healthy and have kind of all my guns loaded, I feel like they're confident in that and confident in me. So, I mean, there are teams that may have dropped me down on their boards, but I know there are still teams that still believe that I'll be able to add value to their cornerback position.
So, Jaylon, let's look at your career. A lot of people don't realize this, but you were a tremendous basketball player in high school. How close were you to only doing basketball over football growing up?
Honestly, I want to say in the beginning of high school, I was more heavy on football, and then kind of came to a point where I got hurt in basketball. I ended up hurting my hip, and then I missed like half my junior season. And then after that, I'm like, man, forget basketball. I just want to play football. So, I mean, kind of my love grew.
Tell us about playing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dylan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you were saying your love grew for football
For
instead?
football, yeah, during that time.
You go to Utah. I mean, it's a school and a coach, obviously, with Kyle Whittingham, who's known for putting a lot of players in the NFL on the defensive side of the ball. And you also faced, I'm guessing, a couple of first-round picks, right? I mean, you faced Michael Pittman, you faced Laviska Shenault, and you faced Brandon Ayuk, right? So, and maybe even N'Keal Henry going back 2 years ago. How has playing for Utah and in the Pac-12 against those guys really helped you develop as a cornerback?
Honestly, it helped me a lot, and I feel like that was the reason why I chose Utah too. Because I mean, it's an easy selling point saying, "Hey, you can come here and battle against all the guys that we have at USC, and you will be able to practice against those guys day in and day out." But you don't earn money, you don't earn opportunities by what you do in practice. And for me, it was about who I can face in the game, who I can make plays against in the game where it matters. So going to Utah, I knew that was going to give me a good opportunity to play against the best people and not just going to the best team, but playing against the best teams and trying to beat those teams and compete against those guys. So, I mean, for me, I feel like it gave me a great opportunity to be who I am now. Because considering if I joined those teams, I wouldn't have those names to say that I went against and that I've held to a certain amount of numbers.
Right. I know. And a scout told me real quick that your tape against Ayuk and Shenault are really good, I guess, from this past year. Can you just talk about when you went up against them, what was your plan? Or you knew those guys were their top receivers and probably high draft picks. What was your plan when you faced both of those guys?
Honestly, just limit the big plays. I mean, at the end of the day, they're playmakers as well. They work hard as well. They are going to be who they are. So, I mean, I never think to just not let them get anything, but to limit their production and limit their catches and their playmaking and just stuff like that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I just go in with kind of a game plan of who they are as a receiver, who they are as a playmaker after the catch. And then I just kind of create my own strategy, considering me just playing star coverage on them the whole game. I just had my own strategy going into it of what I wanted to do, what different looks I wanted to switch up and give them. But just having a real strategy in terms of how I planned on stopping them.
Jaylon, Geoff mentioned some of the receivers you went up against. If you had to narrow it down to two guys who were over your 3 years at Utah, who were the two toughest receiver opponents during your career there?
That's a tough question. Two toughest.
Well, give us something on Shenault because people love. He's a beast. He's a big dude. Give us an idea of what that was like going up against him.
Honestly, it was just that it was a physical matchup. And I mean, I knew that coming into it, that who he was physically. And honestly, it's just him being as big as he is and being able to move the way he can move. I knew that was going to cause problems. And also, he's their number one guy in offense, so the ball was going to come often to him. And even then, they put him at running back. They put him in different positions. It was just how versatile he was, and his big playmaking ability makes him stand out for sure. But the two toughest, I didn't say the best two. I would say, so my 3 years, I would say Dante Pettis, my freshman year, I would say
he's with the Niners, yep.
Or I'm stuck between.
Geoff, who did you mention? Who did you mention before?
Well, I mean, there was Brandon Ayuk. He's had to play.
Oh, Ayuk, yeah. How about Ayuk? That's a great one. He might go in the first round.
Pittman from USC. I'm sure he's had to battle.
Huge, yeah.
Honestly, I would say Dylan Mitchell last year from Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
He was tough. Those other guys were good, and I would say are better like playmakers than he was. But I feel like in terms of the toughest to guard and the way he ran his routes, I feel like him and Dante Pettis had a lot of resemblance.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran really good routes.
You mentioned playing the opportunity to play star coverage at Utah. Does that mean that you trail the best wide receiver?
Yes,
okay. So that's obviously a feather in the cap that you can say whenever you guys played a really good wide receiver, you were the person who responded to who
sure.
was assigned to that guy. What scheme do you feel like you fit? I mean, give me your man, your press, your zone. What are the strengths that you bring to the table, and what scheme do you think you fit best?
Honestly, I feel like it's just my versatility, being able to play all those, because there's not a coverage that I can't play. Like I mentioned, I played the star cover, so I can play man to man, I can play press man, I can play off man, and then also being able to play zone coverage as well. Because I mean, I didn't just play man 100% of the time, but also being able to be versatile in cover 3 and cover 2, different things like that. So I mean, I would definitely say my ability to do all of those coverage, I would say, is my strong suit, that I'm not limited to any scheme, whether it's a man heavy, a zone heavy scheme. I feel like I'm very versatile in coverage.
Jaylon, looking at your career, when you look at your skill set, did you play other than corner growing up? Did you play another position in football?
I want to say up until high school, I was more like offense heavy. I played receiver and running back. And then when I got into high school, that's when I kind of started focusing on one position, and I would say I played corner. And then throughout high school, I played both ways, corner and receiver, but my main position was corner.
Gotcha.
Jaylon, you're one of the guys who I guess when the college football season ended, or even the NFL football season ended, and you check in with a few scouts on the draft, you hear a couple of names, and then it's almost as of last 2 or 3 weeks that I really started to hear your name from the scouts and personnel people that I've been talking to. Why do you, and even now nationally on TV, you'll see Jaylon Johnson is becoming what they call the riser here as we get close to the draft. Why in the last few weeks do you think your name has really started to kind of percolate around in the media and from talking to other people around the league?
I feel like it's just about more education that people are doing, and just more that people are learning about me. Because I feel like nothing has really changed about me. I'm not going out of my way or doing anything to make myself rise or anything like that. But I would just say people are starting to look and take notice of my body of work and what I was actually able to do at Utah, and not just look at, okay, well, he's not from USC or he's not from the SEC or anything like that, and they're not really focused on the hype train in terms of where I'm coming from, but actually looking at the work I've been able to do. And considering, I feel like some people may call it a question mark, but I feel like with my shoulders and not being healthy, I feel like that makes my ceiling even that much higher, knowing that I haven't been healthy and that I was able to play against the people I was able to play against and have the production I was able to have. So, I mean, I feel like people look at me and think, okay, he still has more room to grow. He can still be better. And then, honestly, I would just say that, I would say just that, just the hope that I have and the ceiling I have for myself.
You had 11 passes defense last season, which is a really good number. The technique that you have, where did you learn that passes defense or something that teams look for? Where did you get that technique, and where did you learn how to play DB so well?
Honestly, it started in my family. My dad played safety at Fresno State. My brother played cornerback at UCLA from 13 to 17. I mean, it's definitely in my family. It's definitely the language I've spoke my whole life. And learned from them from a very young age. And then honestly, it just went from me just being hungry and just trying to perfect the craft and just be more greedy in terms of learning and soaking in information and being great. And then at Utah, the coach did a really good job of pushing me and staying on top of me and finding ways to challenge me mentally and physically, being more consistent in the technique and really trusting the technique. So, I mean, I would definitely say it's just a pool of people that poured into me to make me who I am now.
Couple of stats I read on you, Jaylon. You had the third best. The total QBR against you actually was the best in the FBS, and also you had the fourth best completion percentage against among all corners in the NFL draft. Which one of those to you are you most proud of?
What were they again? What was the first one?
You have the best total QBR allowed, a 3.9 against you. It's the best in FBS.
In my career?
I believe this was in coverage lined up outside cornerback on the right side of the field last season. I'm sorry, I should have given you that context. That came from ESPN. And then according to Roto Grinders, you've got the fourth best completion percentage against among all NFL draftable corners.
Well, honestly,
pretty good stats either way, right?
I would say I couldn't pick one, but I feel like that's just goes into being consistent. And then I feel like for me that stands out. because I played those number one guys. I just didn't play one side of the field. I followed everybody around across the field, the best guys. So I feel like my numbers, being able to do that and being consistent in that speaks volumes in terms of the competition I was going against, and that I didn't have a week off or anything like that. I had to come prepared. I had to do my own preparation. I had to create my own game plan for the receivers that I went to guard, because the coaches aren't giving me that game plan. They're giving me a total scheme. But in terms of who I was going to guard against, I had to create my own game plan on top of the whole defensive game plan as well. So I feel like for me, those numbers mean a lot to me, because it took a lot to do that and to come out with that type of production.
Did you have a favorite player growing up, a favorite corner? Because since you've played it for such a long time, and obviously you talked about DBs are a bit in your family for a long time, but did you have a favorite player that you watched growing up, or you mirrored your game after as a corner?
I wouldn't say growing up, because I didn't really watch the cornerback position. I just watched football because I love the game. But I wouldn't say I really started watching cornerbacks, and even NFL cornerbacks. I feel like even in high school, I like to watch the college cornerbacks. But honestly, I couldn't give you like a fair player growing up, because I feel like now I watch the game differently, so I can appreciate the Patrick Petersons, the Stephon Gilmores, those type of guys. I can appreciate those guys now and watch them differently than I would have been growing up.
Jaylon, have you gotten to know it all throughout this process? Eagles cornerbacks coach Marquand Manuel, have you talked to the Eagles much? Do you feel like they're one of the teams that's been kind of keeping a close eye on you?
No, not too much. I've talked to him a little bit, but I haven't talked to him too much after the combine.
Okay, what kind of teams do you feel have put the most homework into you, based on your whether you FaceTime or just your interactions?
I would say the Chiefs, the Titans. I would say the Raiders, Minnesota. What else would I be missing? I feel like the Jets did.
A lot of man cover teams in there, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's interesting. Is that really been your forte, to be able to cover that one guy that to shut down or to do the best job you can against the opponent's receiver? Was that pretty much your 3 years there? You were the guy who had to do it?
I would definitely say, I wouldn't say my freshman year, no. My sophomore year, started my sophomore year against Oregon when Dylan Mitchell kind of got hot against us in the first half, and then they assigned me to him in the second half, and then that kind of just changed the dynamics of our team, not even our team, our defense after that, knowing that we have that ability and that I have that ability to stop that number one guy, and that the defense can worry about the other 10. So kind of just go and play 10 on 10 and leave me and the other guy out there to just go at it and stop him. So, I definitely started in 2018, and then that was my role the entire year of 2019.
So we had Denzel Mims on last week, and he said he had been to Philadelphia once, and it was I think he said it was a scary experience for him. I'm curious if you've ever been to Philadelphia, or if there's anywhere you've been where you're a little scared. You're like, I've been there once before, and I'm not sure about that place.
I've never been to Philly, but I've traveled a lot in my younger years. AAU basketball, going to New Orleans, going to Indianapolis, and just different places like that, and playing basketball. I feel like for me, I got to kind of see a lot of different places and learn to appreciate them. Because it's different seeing them on social media or seeing them like in movies. And we even went to New York and just seeing like Rucker Park and seeing I forget, Times Square. There's different stuff like that. You just kind of learn to have a different perspective and learn to appreciate it more. But there wasn't a place that I was uneasy at in a sense.
So before we get out of here, Jaylon, give us an idea where you're going to be draft night.
I'm just be at my family's house, honestly, just me and a couple members of my family, and then just gonna go from there.
And you're in Fresno, right?
Yes,
Fresno,
sir.
California. All right. Last thing from me, when I think of the Utah program over the last, 10, 15, whatever years, I think of some really good defensive play. Eric Weddle, DeMarcus Lawrence has come out of there. Star Lotulelei, I believe, was right. Utah. Eric Rowe, who was drafted by the Eagles about 4 or 5 years ago. I think he's with the Dolphins now. Any of those guys or other guys that you think of that Utah that had a big influence on you?
Influence now, or
did they ever come back? Do you hit them up? You talk about life in the NFL? Anybody that you recall from that group, or a name that maybe I'm missing that you just kind of look up to or to have tapped into?
No, not yet. I definitely had it in my head to build more relationship with Eric Weddle.
Hmm.
But I feel
It's a
like
good one.
that was more of something that I had coming out of high school, going into college, was having those guys there and knowing that there has been guys in my position that had success and that are still in the league having success, so that it can definitely be done and that those guys set that example and set that bar. And then I wanted to come in and outshine and outdo, and just give myself a better opportunity of what they were able to do, and just keep outdoing what was there and keep resetting the bar. But I mean, now I haven't really talked to him too much, but Eric Weddle, I would say, is one person that I definitely want to talk to, whether on the phone or through social media, but just to get a better relationship and get his perspective on the NFL, considering how long he's done it.
Yeah, well, you got to get that beard going if you want to talk to Eric, right? Because that's what he was
It's
famous
nice,
for, that big long beard.
right?
All right, Jaylon, man, we really appreciate you joining us. We wish you the best. We hope everybody that we talk to gets drafted in the first round. So we hope that for you.
Yes, sir.
Hope the shoulder is great. And again, we really appreciate you joining us. Do you have a Twitter handle or an Instagram account or anything you want to promote? Go ahead now. We give you the floor.
Nah, I don't promote my social media like that. If you follow me, you want to follow me, you can find me
All
on
right.
there.
All right.
But
It sounds
thank
great.
you.
Again, we really appreciate you joining us on Inside the Birds TV, and we wish you the best of luck, whether you are in Philadelphia or anywhere else. So
Yes,
thanks
sir.
again, and have a great week, and really enjoy the NFL draft experience.
Thank you.
All right. That'll do it for Inside the Birds TV. Again, Jaylon Johnson, Utah cornerback. We will catch you on the next edition. Thanks, everybody, for watching.